Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Elijah Hammond's life had always been comfortably predictable. His days unfolded in a consistent rhythm, dedicated work hours, cherished moments with his family, and simple pleasures like weekend rounds of golf. But that evening, as he entered his home, something felt profoundly different. The atmosphere was tense, the kind of tension that hums in the air before a storm. Aurora sat at the dining table, an open bottle of red wine before her, flanked by 2 empty glasses. The scene was unusual. Aurora rarely drank without occasion, and the way she gripped her glass, her calm demeanor betrayed by the cloudiness in her eyes, was unsettling. Elijah set his keys down on the counter, forcing a smile as he greeted her. "What's this about? Are we celebrating something?" Aurora's lips curved slightly, but the gesture didn't reach her eyes. "Sit down, Elijah. We need to talk." Her voice was composed, but its deliberate tone sent a shiver through him. Reluctantly, he sat, his heart beginning to race as he lifted the glass she had poured for him. "What's going on?" he asked, keeping his voice steady despite the unease bubbling within. Aurora took a measured sip of her wine before meeting his gaze, her expression unreadable. "I've been reflecting," she began, her voice even but heavy with intent. "About us, about our marriage." Elijah leaned forward, his concern visible. "What do you mean? Is something wrong?" Aurora hesitated, and in that brief silence, he saw the internal struggle in her eyes. Her next words were precise and cutting. "I feel like I've lost myself," she admitted. "I've been a wife, a mother, but somewhere along the line I forgot who I am." The weight of her confession hit Elijah hard. "Aurora, we've built a life together, a good life. What are you saying?" Her grip on the glass tightened. "I'm saying I need to find myself again, to figure out what I truly want, who I truly am." His chest tightened, dread spreading like a shadow. "And you think you can't do that with me?" Aurora's gaze faltered as she looked away. Her voice softened, but her words were unyielding. "I need space, Elijah. I need to step outside our marriage to understand what I'm missing." The full implication of her statement washed over him like a tidal wave. "You're saying you want to see other people?" His voice was barely a whisper. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Just for a while. I need clarity." Silence engulfed the room, oppressive and stifling. Elijah stared at her, his mind reeling. Emotions clashed, shock, anger, sorrow, leaving him stunned. He excused himself quietly, climbing the stairs with leaden feet, each step amplifying the ache in his chest. In the solitude of their bedroom, Elijah stood before the mirror, studying the reflection of a man who suddenly felt older, as though the weight of her words had aged him overnight. Mechanically, he changed out of his clothes, his mind a whirlwind of despair. As he pulled on a sweatshirt, a desperate idea formed in his mind. Reaching for his phone, he opened the voice recording app and hit record, slipping the device into his pocket. When he returned to the dining room, Aurora was still there, her wine nearly gone. She continued speaking, her tone rehearsed as she outlined her plans to meet someone new. "It's just dinner," she insisted, though Elijah's instincts told him otherwise. The distance between them, once small, now felt like an unbridgeable chasm. Elijah said nothing, his expression unreadable, though a tempest raged within him. Each word from Aurora felt like another dagger to his heart. "I've made arrangements for Friday night," she said, her voice soft yet unapologetic. "I'll be back Saturday morning. We can discuss more then." Elijah pushed back his chair abruptly, the sound grating against the floor. "I need to clear my head," he muttered, his tone devoid of feeling. Grabbing his keys, he left without another word, the door closing behind him with a quiet finality. Driving aimlessly through the city, Elijah's thoughts swirled in turmoil. The passing streetlights blurred into streaks of light, mirroring the tears he fought to contain. Eventually, he stopped at a dimly lit diner. Beneath its buzzing neon sign, he ordered a coffee he didn't intend to drink. Sitting in the stillness of the booth, he played the recording twice, Aurora's voice slicing deeper each time. Unable to bear the solitude, Elijah called Rachel, his daughter. Her cheerful voice answered, a sharp contrast to his anguish. "Hey, Dad!" "Rachel," he said, his voice strained. "I need you and Ethan on a call. It's important." Her tone shifted immediately. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Just trust me," he urged. "Get Ethan on the line." Minutes later, the three of them were connected. Elijah hesitated before playing the recording. Aurora's words filled the silence, exposing the fracture in their family's foundation. When it ended, Rachel's trembling voice broke the quiet. "What? She thinks dating other men will fix your marriage?" Ethan, usually the calm one, cursed sharply. "She's lost it, Dad." Elijah exhaled shakily, his emotions raw and exposed. "I didn't know how else to handle this. I needed you to hear it." Rachel's determination sharpened. "We're not letting her do this, Dad. She doesn't get to destroy our family without a fight." Ethan's voice was resolute. "We've got your back, Dad. We'll get through this." Elijah's despair, which had weighed heavily on him all evening, finally cracked as he heard his children's words. "We're behind you all the way." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, a flicker of hope lit his spirit. His children weren't just his family. They were his foundation, the unwavering support he needed to face the challenges ahead. With them by his side, he felt a surge of resolve. The next morning, Elijah woke with a clarity that had been absent for months. The suffocating haze of sorrow and uncertainty was gone, replaced by a sharp determination. Aurora's betrayal wasn't just a personal affront. It was an attack on the family they had painstakingly built. Elijah resolved that her actions wouldn't go unanswered. As he sipped a steaming mug of black coffee at the kitchen table, Elijah scrolled through his phone, his mind set on action. At the top of his recent calls was a name he had never expected to need: Margaret Pierce. Known for her uncompromising strategies and razor-sharp legal acumen, Margaret was one of the most respected divorce attorneys in the city. They had met years ago through a mutual acquaintance, though he'd never imagined this was how their paths would cross again. When Margaret picked up, Elijah wasted no time. "Margaret, it's Elijah Hammond. I need your help," he said with quiet determination. Margaret's questions were brief and precise, her professionalism apparent even over the phone. She quickly scheduled a meeting for later that day, her tone brisk and reassuring. "Bring every piece of evidence you can find," she instructed firmly. "The more, the better." That afternoon, Elijah stepped into Margaret's sleek, modern office, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering sweeping views of the city. She greeted him with a firm handshake and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Let's get to work," she said, motioning him to sit. Elijah placed everything he had on the table: a recording of Aurora's damning confession, explicit text messages he had recovered from her phone, and printed emails between Aurora and someone named Vincent. The evidence left no room for doubt about her affair. Margaret reviewed each piece with meticulous care, occasionally jotting down notes. When she finally looked up, her expression was decisive. "This is strong," she said with conviction. "It establishes clear grounds for adultery, which strengthens your position significantly. We can push for a larger share of the marital assets. With your children supporting you, the case is even stronger." Elijah's jaw tightened as he nodded, his resolve firm. "I want her to face the consequences," he said, his voice hard. "She didn't just betray me, she betrayed our family." Margaret offered a small, approving nod. "She will," she assured him. For the next hour, they laid out a meticulous plan. Margaret walked Elijah through the divorce process, emphasizing timing. They decided to serve Aurora the divorce papers in a way that would leave no doubt about the weight of her actions during her planned dinner date with Vincent. It was a calculated move meant to make the consequences of her betrayal undeniable. The days leading up to Friday were filled with preparations. Elijah and his children, Rachel and Ethan, united by a shared sense of purpose, worked together to pack up Aurora's belongings. Each box they filled seemed to lighten the emotional burden that had weighed on their home. Rachel moved with focused determination, her anger evident in every deliberate action. "She doesn't belong here anymore," she muttered, tossing a pair of heels into a box. "This is our space now." Ethan, quieter but equally resolute, carried the boxes to the car without complaint. His words were few but firm. She made her choice. Now she has to deal with it. By Friday morning, the house was stripped of Aurora's presence. Elijah arranged for her belongings to be placed in a storage unit near her parents' home, and new locks were installed on the doors. The house, once heavy with tension, felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. As Elijah stood in the now serene living room, he exhaled deeply, the weight of finality pressing on him. "This is it," he murmured. "Everything changes tonight." That evening, Aurora arrived at an upscale restaurant, exuding confidence in a vibrant red dress. Her hair was styled to perfection, and she reveled in the atmosphere of freedom and excitement. Vincent greeted her with warmth, pulling out her chair as they settled into the intimate ambiance. For the first time in years, Aurora felt truly alive. The evening unfolded effortlessly, filled with laughter and stolen glances. Aurora sipped her wine, savoring the moment, when a sharp voice disrupted the scene. "Mom!" Rachel stood at the table, her tone icy and resolute. The fire in her eyes was impossible to ignore. Aurora's confident demeanor faltered, her smile vanishing as her face turned pale. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" Aurora stammered, her voice shaky. Ignoring Vincent entirely, Rachel's gaze bore into her mother. "I could ask you the same thing," she shot back. "Out here playing happy, while Dad's at home picking up the pieces of the life you tore apart." Aurora opened her mouth to respond, but Rachel didn't allow it. "How could you?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the hushed restaurant. "To him? To us?" The room grew still as whispers spread among the diners, all eyes on their table. "Rachel, not here," Aurora pleaded, her voice low, desperate. But Rachel was undeterred. "You didn't care about humiliating Dad, so why should I care about your embarrassment?" Before Aurora could reply, a suited man approached the table, holding an envelope. "Mrs. Aurora Hammond," he announced loudly. Aurora's trembling hands accepted the envelope. "Yes," she whispered. "You've been served," he declared, placing the divorce papers firmly in her grasp. A heavy silence fell over the room. Aurora sat frozen, staring at the documents, her shock evident. Vincent, visibly uncomfortable, mumbled an excuse before leaving in haste. Leaning closer, Rachel delivered her final words, each syllable dripping with cold resolve. "You did this to yourself." Without another glance, she turned and walked out, leaving Aurora to face the consequences of her choices alone in the glaring spotlight of her humiliation. The whispers surrounding her seemed endless, each one a sharp reminder of the judgment pressing in from all sides. That evening, Aurora arrived home only to find that her key no longer worked. The locks had been changed. Panic rising, she pounded on the door, her voice trembling with desperation. "Elijah!" she called out, her words catching in her throat. "Please let me in!" Her phone buzzed in her hand, and the name on the screen made her heart race. It was Elijah. When she answered, his voice was detached, devoid of emotion. "Aurora," he said curtly, "there's an envelope waiting for you. Read it. Everything you need to know is inside." The line went dead before she could respond. Shaking, she tore into the envelope left outside. Inside was a letter, its tone cold and resolute. "Aurora, your actions have spoken and so have mine. Enclosed are divorce papers citing your infidelity. Your belongings are in a storage unit. The key and address are included. The children have chosen to stay with me. Do not contact me directly. Speak through my lawyer. These are the consequences of your decisions. Elijah." The letter slipped from her trembling hands as she crumpled to the ground, the weight of her actions suffocating her. Her marriage, her family, her sense of belonging, all of it was gone. The cold pavement beneath her mirrored the emptiness inside. Desperate to salvage something, she dialed her children. First Rachel, then Ethan. Each call went unanswered, her pleas meeting only the emptiness of voicemail. Their silence cut deeper than words ever could. With nowhere else to turn, she drove aimlessly before arriving at the storage unit Elijah had mentioned. The quiet streets offered no distraction from the turmoil in her mind. At the unit, she unlocked the door to find her belongings boxed and labeled with stark precision. What had once been her life was now reduced to impersonal cartons. She spent hours rifling through the remnants, Photos, keepsakes, and clothes that felt like artifacts of someone else's past. By the time she left, dawn was breaking, and she felt hollow, as though a part of her had been left behind with the boxes. When Monday arrived, it brought no relief. As she entered the office, Aurora could feel the weight of curious, judging eyes. Whispers seemed to follow her every step. By mid-morning, her boss called her in, his expression grim. "Aurora," he said, his tone heavy with disappointment, "the video of you and Rachel has gone viral." She didn't need him to elaborate. She already knew the footage of their confrontation at the restaurant had spread like wildfire, accompanied by scathing public commentary. Her boss's voice was firm, almost detached. "This situation is damaging, not just to you but to the company. Effective immediately, you are on indefinite leave." Leaving the office felt like another door slamming shut. Her professional life, like her personal one, had crumbled. Alone in her small, lifeless apartment, the days stretched endlessly, each one indistinguishable from the last. Even Vincent, the man she had risked everything for, offered no reprieve. After the scandal erupted, he severed ties completely, his parting words as cutting as Elijah's letter. "This isn't what I wanted. We need to move on." Nights became an endless cycle of scrolling through old family photos, each image a reminder of the life she had shattered. The temptation to call Elijah lingered, but his letter had made his stance clear. Her children's silence was an even harsher blow. They had chosen their father, and she couldn't fault them for it. One evening, while aimlessly browsing social media, she stumbled across a post from Elijah. A photo of him, Rachel, and Ethan smiling over dinner, accompanied by the caption, "Stronger Together." The sight of them thriving without her was an unbearable ache. Tears streamed down her face as regret washed over her in waves. Determined to confront the wreckage of her life, Aurora sought therapy. The sessions were grueling, forcing her to peel back the layers of insecurity and dissatisfaction that had driven her choices. Slowly, she began to piece herself back together. Volunteering at a local community center offered a sense of purpose, giving her a small measure of fulfillment. Rebuilding her relationship with her children became her greatest challenge. She penned heartfelt letters to Rachel and Ethan, apologizing without excuses and taking full responsibility for the pain she had caused. For a long time, there was no response. But eventually, Rachel reached out cautiously. Their early conversations were fragile, marked by lingering hurt, but they were a start. Over time, Aurora's life began to stabilize. She found a new job, simpler and far removed from her previous ambitions, but meaningful in its own way. Her relationship with her children remained delicate, but she cherished every moment they allowed her to be part of their lives. Meanwhile, Elijah flourished. His bond with Rachel and Ethan deepened, and he began dating again, rebuilding his happiness on his terms. Though the scars from Aurora's betrayal lingered, they no longer defined him. One day, Aurora received an unexpected letter from Elijah. It was brief but sincere, acknowledging her efforts to make amends and wishing her peace. Though it wasn't forgiveness, it was the closure she hadn't dared to hope for. Holding the letter close, Aurora allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time she felt a glimmer of hope. Step by step, she was learning to rebuild her life, to seek peace and redemption, one day at a time. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.